At 08:03 Coordinated Universal Time on August 18, 2025, instruments positioned across the vast inner solar system registered an interaction wholly inconsistent with established understanding of small body celestial mechanics. The Solar and Heliophysics Observatory, precisely balanced between the gravitational anchors of Earth and the Sun, traced an elegant bow-shaped distortion in the solar wind, a curved path of moving charge manifesting where no immense planetary magnetosphere should exist. This complex disturbance formed an undeniable zone of presence around an object intrinsically too minor to command such a powerful, wide-ranging effect. Yet the sheer physical dimensions of the plasma warp were undeniable. That object, the third interstellar visitor officially recognized by science, was designated 3I Atlas, and its fleeting passage immediately began to dissolve the assumptions that governed cosmic plasma and magnetism, setting the stage for a dramatic intellectual upheaval. Just 2 minutes later, the Parker Solar Probe, operating in a searing environment few machines can endure so close to the solar current, detected a sudden, intense spike in magnetic field density, an unmistakable pulse of energy rising precisely from the object's direction. These synchronized readings, precise to the fraction of the second across independent channels, testified to an apparent physical impossibility, a mere cometary nucleus exhibiting a signature of power previously anticipated only from planets fortified by molten, internally generated dynamos. Curiosity was thus anchored in the sheer factual contradiction, promising that any resolution would inevitably expand the known frontiers of cosmic physics. Domain A, Discovery Mechanics, Engagement Loop, Anticipation. Scientists whose entire careers were built on scaling magnetic strength relative to the observable magnitude of a planetary body, watched as this small visitor from another star system compelled that comfortable proportionality to dissolve entirely. In control centers across the globe, analysts meticulously rechecked calibration tables and cross-referenced the sequence of events. The convergence of the data remained unbroken, proving the readings were neither mere interference nor instrumental artifacts, but represented an authentic physical reality.
Before we get to that, I need your help. I'm trying to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I need your help. So I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe and help me out.
This was a challenging moment when established procedure abruptly collided with raw astonishment, compelling protocol to yield to the simple, overwhelming acknowledgement that the laws governing small bodies had been fundamentally challenged. Institutions responded initially with the language of extreme caution, issuing reports that carefully described anomalous field structures and uncharacteristic plasma interactions, utilizing clinical descriptors to avoid premature theorization. Press releases maintained an atmosphere of neutrality rather than outright dismissal, yet the absence of any comprehensive interpretation spoke volumes louder than any outright denial could have. When established models fail decisively, the language of explanation naturally retreats, prioritizing fact over narrative. Doubt settled not on the veracity of the evidence, but on the capacity of the current scientific framework to contain it, satisfying the deeply held suspicion that important data is often carefully managed by institutional scarcity of definitive answer rather than celebrated for its abundance. Domain B, Institutional Response, Engagement Loop, Scarcity, Overload, Satisfaction, Truth Beyond Bureaucracy. The physical reality emerging from this unprecedented encounter was both elegant in its geometry and deeply disturbing in its implications for cosmic mechanics. 3I Atlas, an object no larger than a modest terrestrial mountain, demonstrated an inherent capacity to completely reorganize the path of the immense solar wind, actively distorting the flow of charged particles that are normally dictated only by the sheer dominance of the solar output itself. Where plasma physics dictates strict obedience to stellar forces, this foreign traveler carved its own invisible boundary, asserting a quiet influence that redefined the concept of smallness and proved that true cosmic power need not rely on observable magnitude. This unexpected field hinted at a mechanism so robust it could fundamentally reshape the interaction between matter and the solar current, enveloping the object in a powerful electromagnetic veil that served not as a shield, but as a mediator of force. Instead of being passively consumed by the immense pressure, 3I Atlas appeared to actively sculpt the incoming particles, diverting energy into an encompassing sheath of stability where the mechanical stress of the solar wind could not gain purchase. This phenomenon offered a profound revelation of physics, demonstrating a form of poetic justice where the arrogance of a rigid scale was corrected by the sheer integrity of observation, confirming that nature will always resist human efforts to oversimplify its complex rules. Domain C. Physical explanation, engagement loop, moral dynamics, satisfaction, vindication. For the quiet communities of independent observers and those who track anomalies with patient skepticism, this persistence of measurement delivered validation like a restorative current of understanding. Years of patiently tracking interstellar anomalies and unexplained events, often dismissed as instrumental noise or the product of observational error, now found profound redemption in the unambiguous testimony of sophisticated instruments positioned far beyond their reach. The unexpected endurance of the comet under solar assault mirrored the conviction held by those who watch the night sky, that reality will always resist oversimplification, and the universe still harbors phenomena yet unmodeled by human mathematics. The event served to reunite precision and quiet passion, proving that devotion to careful, skeptical observation can stand on equal footing with institutional power without the need for apology or defense. Each graph and telemetry reading felt like a profound restoration, as raw evidence reclaimed its voice from the stifling presumption of certainty that had surrounded earlier anomalies.
Before we get to that, I need your help. I'm trying to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I need your help. So I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe and help me out.
This recalibration was not just a scientific adjustment, it was a societal equalization, where the cosmos itself dissolved artificial hierarchy through the irresistible, leveling clarity of objective fact, finally acknowledging the integrity of those who remained bound to the identity of the skeptical, perpetual learner. Domain D, human response, engagement loop, identity binding, satisfaction, vindication. In the aftermath of the initial magnetic findings, further spectroscopic studies, initially viewed with institutional skepticism, provided a new layer of factual distinction, complicating the picture beyond mere electromagnetic shielding. Sensors detected high concentrations of nickel vapor emanating from the comet, yet notably, none of the iron that should conventionally accompany it in cometary composition based on known solar system formation processes. This striking absence was not data noise, it was an undeniable repeated pattern across multiple sensor sweeps, implying a surface or subsurface chemistry that fundamentally defied the entire known catalog of cometary formation processes. The emitted gases deepened this compositional puzzle further, revealing an overwhelming dominance of carbon dioxide over the water vapor expected from a body nearing the sun, which suggested the presence of an insulating foreign crust. This unique imbalance implied a structural integrity capable of suppressing the ordinary sublimation process, allowing fine water ice grains to persist beneath a thick layer of thermal isolation. What began as a purely magnetic problem quickly evolved into a complex magnetochemical one, demonstrating that the object's ability to repel solar energy was a synergistic property of both its field and its bizarre matter. This gradual, detailed look at composition provided an intermittent reward, gradually unveiling the full, foreign nature of the traveler and confirming that the initial magnetic readings were not a fortunate near miss of a chance current, but an enduring structural component of the body. Domain E. Philosophical reflection, engagement loop, intermittent reward, satisfaction, humility, clarity. The philosophical implication of this spectroscopic contradiction rested on the provisional nature of knowledge itself, reminding everyone that every current scientific model inherently rests upon the flawed assumption of its own completeness. 3I Atlas exposed that truth gently, without requiring a catastrophic collision of ideas. The sheer inquiry necessary to reconcile nickel without iron and copious CO2 without expected water created a rigorous intellectual discipline, renewing trust in the empirical method and proving that to admit uncertainty is to truly honor the data, not diminish it. Initial institutional briefings, which had cautiously avoided the term anomaly, gave way to deeper internal discussion, as the evidence stubbornly refused to be normalized under any existing terrestrial model. The quiet advance of fact by fact, patiently awaiting a context that would not distort it, served as a potent counter-narrative to those accustomed to immediate, authoritative pronouncements. For the public, to hear leading scientists offer the rare, precise confession, "We don't understand how this formed," was a moment of moral clarity, stripping away institutional pretense and restoring honesty to the collective human pursuit. This structural honesty meant that confusion, when admitted and explored, can illuminate far more than certainty concealed, affirming the integrity of the ongoing investigation. Domain F. Long-term implication, engagement loop, relief loop, satisfaction, confusion as honesty. As the scientific community continued to study the detailed mechanisms, the object's observed motion revealed further subtleties that profoundly confounded prediction. Classical simulations assumed that direct solar wind pressure would induce measurable deflection and rotational tumbling upon an object of this size. Yet, 3I Atlas maintained its trajectory unbroken and its rotation virtually unchanged, as if the physical laws themselves were paused in recognition of some unaccounted-for counterforce. Laboratories ran the simulations repeatedly, feeding in revised parameters and adjusting magnetic variables, but each iteration produced the same predicted instability, which the real object persistently refused to comply with. This contradiction invited a profound scrutiny, forcing researchers to recognize that prediction is often merely a sophisticated form of cautious faith in existing dogma, which must always be submitted to the final authority of observation. The eventual, difficult consensus converged on the idea of magnetic mediation, a physical mechanism that transformed what should have been mechanical stress into symmetrical grace. This was not a defiant resistance against the solar wind, but an active mastery of interaction, where the comet converted the force seeking to tear it apart into a stabilizing force that pushed symmetrically against its mass. The failure of the models served as a powerful near-miss warning, confirming that the current state of knowledge was narrowly avoided being completely overturned, but instead was quietly invited to expand. Domain A: discovery mechanics, engagement loop, near-miss, satisfaction, humility, clarity. The institutional response thus shifted from cautious neutrality to a disciplined embrace of the unknown, an active process of allowing bewilderment to speak without immediately forcing it into familiar categories. Reports began to utilize terms like exogenic magnetic source and structural integrity exceeding prediction, framing the findings as a mandate for fundamental research rather than an error to be corrected. The necessary discipline was to withhold judgment and simply record the full spectrum of the object's defiance against expectation, proving that the agencies once criticized for hesitation could reveal through that very restraint the highest respect for reality's innate complexity. The admission of disorientation renewed the social contract with the public, affirming that science, by admitting where it falls short, renews the collective human effort to understand the universe. This deliberate pace, which resisted the impulse for sensationalized conclusion, offered profound reassurance to those who had long suspected that the search for truth was often hindered by the demand for immediate, neat answers. This quiet, measured conduct revealed a new form of moral dynamic, that the failure of scientific theory is not a personal failure, but a systemic invitation to a wider truth. Domain B: institutional response, engagement loop, moral dynamics, satisfaction, confusion as honesty. The internal dynamics of the comet were revealed to be further aided by 3I Atlas's retrograde spin, a backward rotation tilted low against the ecliptic, which reduced the rotational strain that the solar wind would typically amplify upon a forward-spinning body. This rotation, combined with its sheer high velocity gained near the Sun, minimized the time spent under the most destructive solar influence, turning what might have been a catastrophic experience for a slower object into a fleeting, dramatic test of its internal architecture. Its passage through the intense radiation and plasma was an act of grace performed through a precise application of physics, an equilibrium achieved through the subtle hierarchy of nature where one physical principle quietly compensated for another. The dynamics demonstrated that the cosmos operates in a continuity of principle, not a chaos of exception, offering a profound sense of serenity to those who find comfort in underlying order. The rhythmic, cyclic observation of its passage, where one expected disruption failed to materialize after another, affirmed the unity of physical law, even across unimaginable interstellar distances, proving that solar plasma and foreign matter engage in a constant dialogue governed by principles merely waiting to be fully described. The cosmos, in this quiet moment, confirmed that fear calmed by order is a reward earned through the rigor of honest observation. Domain C: physical explanation, engagement, loop, rituality, satisfaction, fear calmed by order. For those who had maintained a perspective built on skeptical vigilance, the saga of 3I Atlas delivered the ultimate vindication, the quiet triumph of intuition rewarded by evidence. The patience of the public, once strained by the opacity that often surrounds complex astronomical discoveries, now found restoration in the measured candor of the scientific community's admission of deep uncertainty. The scientific process, by admitting where it struggled, effectively renewed its social contract with those who watched the sky seeking the unembellished truth, making them partners in the investigation rather than mere spectators. The event affirmed that the search for cosmic truth is a shared human endeavor, a collective act of inquiry that transcends the boundaries between institutional research and independent observation. This shared experience transformed suspicion into belonging, a realization that the universe's complexity is not a secret to be kept, but a puzzle to be solved together. In this sense, the comet's passage represented poetic justice, where the sheer integrity of nature compelled human institutions to speak with a humility that restored faith in the process itself. Domain D, human response, engagement loop, identity binding, satisfaction, poetic justice. As the data continued to accumulate and the comet receded, the focus shifted to the philosophical endurance required for the next stage of understanding. Theories will inevitably adjust, and a new consensus will gradually re-emerge, yet the memory of uncertainty will remain as the most potent lesson of the encounter. This memory will serve to ground future confidence in demonstrable experience rather than in intellectual pride, ensuring that new models carry the indelible mark of what 3i Atlas taught us about the limits of current knowledge. This subtle intellectual change proved that ignorance, when admitted and explored, can illuminate far more than certainty concealed. The phenomenon will stand as both disruption and teacher, showing that confusion can unify rather than divide when guided by collective integrity, forcing a recognition that truth often lies in the spaces between what we thought we knew. The event provided a permanent, structural lesson that all knowledge is provisional, a gentle and necessary reminder delivered from across interstellar space. Domain E, philosophical reflection, engagement loop, near miss, satisfaction, humility, clarity. The long-term implications for heliophysics and exoplanetary science are expansive, demanding recalibration that will fundamentally rewrite several chapters of current textbooks. Magnetic mapping of interstellar bodies will henceforth incorporate parameters once exclusively reserved for the study of planetary dynamics, creating a new, unified field of study. Future frameworks for understanding comet interaction will need to fully account for magnetic self-regulation in bodies of interstellar origin, adjusting classical models that previously assumed only passive instability under stellar pressure. Researchers are now actively investigating how the lessons from 3i Atlas might refine predictions for spacecraft shielding, improve the stability of solar sails, and even advance magnetic reconnection studies by offering a new, small-scale example of plasma control. This necessary escalation of scope demonstrates that knowledge advances not through sudden, tidy revolution, but through the patient, consistent refinement grounded in direct, undeniable observation, where every failure to predict becomes an instruction toward deeper order. The scale of relevance has widened permanently, proving that every wandering fragment can hold the potential to reshape its entire stellar environment, making the universe simultaneously larger and more intimately interconnected through universal physical law. Domain F, long-term implication, engagement loop, escalation, novelty, satisfaction, clarity, vindication. Ultimately, as the analysis phase quiets and the interstellar visitor recedes beyond the effective reach of our terrestrial instruments, the comet leaves behind more than archived data. It leaves a clear contour of humility traced through the solar system's bright noise, a perspective on enduring balance that will permanently influence scientific discourse. Its extraordinary stability under duress reminds us that resistance to distortion, whether physical or intellectual, depends on profound internal coherence and a willingness to accept uncomfortable facts. Just as its unseen magnetic field bent the solar wind without breaking, our understanding must now bend to the truth without collapsing into rigid certainty. The field it revealed, invisible yet now fully acknowledged, stands as a reminder that understanding is perpetual motion, never a static possession. The story endures as a moment of collective honesty. No institution claimed final authority. No voice silenced the unknown. Instead, science paused, recalibrated, and allowed bewilderment to speak. That pause, invisible to headlines, yet luminous to those who understand its rarity, becomes the true discovery, a moment of ritual and collective relief that confirmed that in acknowledging confusion without surrender, humanity aligns with the order it seeks to describe, steady, uncertain, and endlessly receptive to what the universe reveals next. Closure, final beat, engagement loop, open cycles, rituality, satisfaction, serenity, awe.